Masechet Baba Mesia Daf Samechtet. We're talking about a business deal that we call Iska, in which you have an investor that puts in $100 and gives it over to a worker who's going to actually be doing the work, and they agree that they will split the profits and also split any potential losses. And this can look like an interest payment on a loan. How so? Where's the loan? Well, here's how it works. We consider half of the amount, $50, to be a loan. Such that since the investor gives this as a loan to the worker, so the worker, any money he makes on that money, on the 50, he keeps all of it. And any loss he has to make up for because he has to pay back 50. So he gets his 50% gain or loss from that half that's considered a loan. Okay, so now we have a loan. He's not paying interest, so that's okay. The problem is the other half, which the investor is giving to the worker to say, here is my money, you go invest it, buy, sell, and then give me all the profits. And all the loss, if there's loss. Now, in that case, the worker is working for free. He's not getting wages for that. If he's not getting wages for that, then that's considered he's doing a favor. That favor is interest on the loan. Now, this is not deoraita, but it is a problem of the Rabbanan because it looks like interest. And therefore, there has to be some payment from the investor or lender to the guy doing the work. How much does it have to be? We saw various opinions, but the thing we ended off last time is Rav Nachman said, halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda, who said a minimal amount, even if you just dip a little bread in the brine of the investor, that's enough, or he splits a fig with him. And also halacha is like Rabbi Yosef, the son of that same Rabbi Yehuda, who says even if the shepherd who is doing the work can keep some of the whey from the sheep that he's watching, and halacha is like Rashbag, that even if the shepherd just keeps some of the dung or all of the dung that the animals that he's taking care of, he can keep it and use it as fertilizer or sell it, whatever. That's sufficient, even though this is just worth a few pennies. That's fine. It's a symbolic, a token amount to say, okay, you got your wages, right? And that's how I'm paying you, and the loan is therefore a free loan, and it won't look like interest. Good. Now we have a story. Bnei Rav Ilish nefak alayu hahu shetara tavakati ba palga ba'agad palga behefsed. Rav Ilish, a great rabbi, he died. And then someone else had a document like this, an Iska document, in which that guy was the investor and Rav Ilish was to do the work. And in the shtad, it says that they agreed to half profit and half loss. Amar Rava, Rav Ilish kavra Rabahu, v'isura le'nashe lahava safeh. Rava says, this is strange. Rav Ilish was a great man, and he would not put someone else in a position to get something forbidden, to take interest. Now, when there's interest deoraita, that's a prohibition both on the borrower and the seller. But it seems from this statement that when it comes to interest mid'Rabanan, the prohibition is only on the lender who's collecting it. So here, Rav Ilish himself is giving it, so he wouldn't violate the sin directly, but since he's a great man, he should know that this is prohibited, and he would not want to put someone else, lifnei ived, lo titen michshol, and put that other guy into a situation where he will look like he is collecting interest. So how could it be that Rav Ilish would sign a contract, enter into agreement of half profit, half loss, without taking any wages in addition? Therefore, it must be that there's a scribal error. There was a scribal error in this document, in this agreement. Manafshach. Ipalga ba'agar tere tilte behefsed. Ipalga behefsed tere tilte ba'agar. It must be that they're not doing exactly equal loss and equal gain. If it's equal gain for Rav Ilish, then it must be that the investor accepted 2/3 loss. That way, the gain is more than the loss. Or if it's half loss, if the investor accepted half the loss, then it must be, and well, they both accepted half the loss, then it must be that Rav Ilish is going to get 2/3 in the profit, and that way there's no problem because 1/2 of the profit, fine, that's what he's getting because That's his half, and then there's an extra sixth, and that sixth will be the wages that he's getting for taking care of the investor's half. And so it must be that it wasn't really supposed to be exactly half-half. It must have been 2/3, so that there is some more gain for Rav Elish. Otherwise, Rav Elish would not put that other guy in jeopardy of violating this Rabbanan law of avak ribit. אמר רב כהנא, אמריתא לשמעתא כמר דרב זביד מדהדאה, ואמר לי דילמה רב איליש טובל עמו בסירבה, ואמר רב נחמן הלכה כרבי יהודה. Rav Kahana says, I have a simpler explanation. All right, Rav Kahana said, I said this halacha in front of Rav Zvid from Medhada, and he said that there's a simpler explanation. Maybe Rav Elish, he took a piece of bread and dipped it into the brine of that investor, and that was his wages. And after all, Rav Nachman, that we just saw, that we started with, says halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda, that is sufficient. So why not give a simpler explanation? Why say it's a scribal error? It must have said 2/3. And he says, no, when Rav Nachman says halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda, he didn't mean that we actually follow that halacha l'maaseh. He was just saying that all these three opinions follow in a line, right? Now, because he says halacha kerebi, what he meant is that the Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yosef, the son of Rabbi Yehuda, and Rashbag, they all follow the same halacha. They all follow the same opinion. But it doesn't mean that we follow them. He was just trying to point out that they are consistent with each other. And that makes sense that that's what Rav Nachman meant. And this makes sense because if not so, if Rav Nachman really was telling us the practical thing that you can do, then why would he mention all three? Halacha is like this and halacha is like that. Just mention one of them. Mention Rabbi Yehuda. He's the most lenient. He's of all three, he's the least. Even if you just dip a little brine, what is that worth? Like 1 cent? That's even less than whey and less than dung. So you could have just said halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda, and then I would have known the other two. No, you see, obviously Rav Nachman's point was that these three rabbis are all similar to each other. They're all in line with each other. But therefore, this answer for Rav Zavid cannot be explained why Rav Elish was willing to enter into this agreement. So it must be, as we said before, that it was actually a 1/2, 2/3 deal. Amar Rav, motar shelish bischarecha hareze mutar. Rav said, if someone owns a calf and he gives it to a shepherd and he says, can you fatten this up? And we're going to split it half-half and loss is half-half. But in addition, if you fatten it up more than 33%, and if the profit is more than 33%, you can keep all of the profit more than that. He's giving him a little extra incentive to work even harder to really fatten it up. And that will be your wages. So this is permitted because they split it half-half. Fine, you have to do that, but you have to give something extra. And here, that's the something extra. More than 33% of profit, you can keep the whole thing. Shmuel Amar lo masa motar sheli shelech lebeto rekan. Shmuel disagrees with Rav, because what if it only goes up 25%? So now the shepherd is going to go home empty-handed. He'll get his half of the increase. But you also need wages, otherwise it's going to look like interest. And so it could be that it'll go up more than 30%, he'll take something home, but if it doesn't, then he's getting 0 wages, and that's not allowed. Shemuel says you have to make a minimum of a dinar. Here, this will be your wages, and then you can also add, and if you make more than 33%, then you keep all of that, but you have to give him something. Now, back to Rav. Did he really think that you don't have to give an absolute dinar? You don't have to give a minimum amount for wages? That you can do this just anything above the third? After all, Rav has said another statement where also a person had an animal and he gave it to someone to fatten up. He gave it to a fattener. Patoma is a fattener. And he said, the rosh is yours, right? You can keep the head of the animal after we slaughter it. You get the head as extra wages. So isn't that talking about a case where he said, we split everything half-half, and you get all the profit above 1/3, if it goes up 1/3, and you get the head also. So you see that according to Rav, you have to also give a fixed amount. It doesn't have to be a dinar. In this case, it's a head. But just giving the everything over 1/3 is not sufficient. No, it's talking about a case where we said either or. You can take either whatever you make above 1/3, or you could take the head. But one or the other is sufficient. Or the case was where he said, no, you're only getting whatever profit there is above 1/3, and it was talking about a case where the shepherd was also at the same time watching one of his own animals. And people have a common folk saying, they say, once you're mixing food for one ox, it's the same as mixing food for 2 oxen. If you're making scrambled eggs, it's not any more work to make 2 scrambled eggs as 1 scrambled eggs. So if you're doing that for someone else, you're making yourself one, someone else another one, you don't need to get paid especially for that work, because you were doing the work anyway. And therefore, in this case, since the shepherd is doing all the work for mixing the feed and taking care of one animal, so it's really hardly any more work for the second animal. And therefore, in this case, it's sufficient that there just be a possibility, hey, if you really fan it up a lot more and the price goes up more than 33%, then you can keep everything extra. Even though that may not happen, that's okay in this case, because the work that he's putting into it is so minimal. Rabbi Elazar מהגרוניה, זבן בהמה, ויהיב לה לאריסה מפתם לה, ויהב לה רשע באגרה, ויהב לפלגה רבחה. So Rabbi Elazar from Hageronia, he bought an animal, and he gave it to his sharecropper. He owned land also, and the sharecropper is working on his land, and he keeps some of the produce and gives some of the produce back to Rabbi Elazar. That's a separate deal. He says, listen, while you're working on the land, and you're doing that anyway, also can you take this animal and fatten it up? And I'm going to give you the head. When we slaughter it, you get the head of the animal, and you also get half of the profit. So that's a good deal. He is getting wages and half of the profit. Okay. Amra le debitu I mishtatafte behade yahib lach name alita. Now the wife of the sharecropper sees that he's making this deal, and she has some financial advice for her husband. He said, next time you should be a full partner, meaning you should put up money also to buy the animal. And if you do that, then he'll not only will he give you the head, he'll also give you the fat tail, which is a delicacy. It's worth a lot of money, and you'll put up that money, and then you'll get your principal back also eventually when you sell it. But since you're a full partner, you'll get more out of the deal. Azal zeben behadeh palegle ma'alita. So he did that the next time, and the sharecropper put in money, and they bought an animal together. And then the Rabbi Elazar said, okay, we're going to share the fat tail, right? We're equal partners. Good, we'll share the fat tail. Amar le taniflige le resha. Rabbi Elazar then said, okay, and so now we'll also share the head. And now the sharecropper was surprised. He said, before, when I was doing all the work and didn't put up any money, you gave me the entire head. Now, shouldn't I get at least as much as I got initially? I already had the head before. Now that I put in money, I want the head also, the whole head, and also half the tail. Why am I getting less now that I put in the money? Amar le aday danazuze didi havu ilahava yahibna lach tefe purta mechze kerebit. So Rabbi Elazar explains to him, until now I was the sole investor, it was all my money, and therefore I had to give you half the profit and a little more, because otherwise it would look like rebit, right? Because half of it is considered like a loan, and then now you're working for me for free. So I had to give you the head in order for it not to look like ribit. Hashta shutafe anan. But now we're full partners. You put in half the money, I put in half the money, so I don't have to give you anything extra. Maika amart tarachna tefe purta. And maybe you'll say, oh, but you did extra work, because even though they both put in the money, the sharecropper is still doing all the work to take care of the animal. So you'll say, well, I did extra work, so I should get more. Amri nashe stam arisa lemare arak But there's a folk saying that people say that in a general case, a sharecropper subjugates himself to also take care of the pasture of his master, even though technically his job is only to work the land, and he then keeps some of the produce and gives some of the produce. Since he's already on the land and he's working, so he subjugates himself, and he doesn't mind also taking care of some of the animals of the owner. And therefore, it's expected, since you're my sharecropper, I don't have to pay you wages over and above what I'm, with our sharecropping agreement. This is implicit in the sharecropping agreement that you're going to take care of animals. So you don't get anything extra. We are equal partners. We both put in the money, and now I don't have to give you any extra wages because it doesn't look like interest. So I guess the wife's advice was actually not so good, because he has to put in money and he's going to take out the principal. He's not losing any money, but beforehand he got the entire head. So he got more than his share of the profits, and now he only gets half of the head. Tenor Rabbanan, hasham behema lechavero ad matai chayav letapel ba. So now, if two people make an agreement and one puts the money and the other one's going to work with it, and they praise the animal. They praise the animal because in case it goes down, they'll know the starting price, what it was, and they'll know how much loss they should split. So let's say in the middle, one of them wants to stop the deal, right? Maybe the shepherd says, you know what, I don't want to work anymore. I want to sell it now as is and realize whatever profits. Or the owner wants to do so. So how long do they have to work and fatten the animal before either party can stop? Some is unilaterally. Sumchus omer batonosh 18 chodesh begodrot 24 chodesh. So Sumchus says if it's female donkeys 18 months, for flock it's 24 months. That's the average amount of time it takes to fatten up the animals till it's a good amount, and it'll go for a good price when you sell it. And if one of them decides they want to stop early, then the other one can say, no, I don't want to stop early because the profits aren't fully their maximum potential yet. I want to keep going so I can get more of the profit. Now the word aval we're going to to switch. It means because the work for the first year is not the same as the work for another year. Sometimes might have to work more at the beginning to get it going, but then the work in the second year is easier. So the shepherd could say, no, I don't want to stop now. I put on all the work. I wanted to now get really fat to get all of the profit. So aval my kamar. Why do I say aval? However, sounds like it should be the opposite. Ella, you're right. Lefi sheno domet tipola shel shana zol tipola shel shana acheret. The aval should be lefi. It's explaining why no one can stop in the middle, because you never know that it's not like it's going up consistently, evenly, that you could sell it at any time and you get the same amount of profit for the work. It could be in the beginning there's more work but less profit. In the second year, there's less work and more profit. And so therefore, you have to go till the assumed term. Tanya idach, hasham behema lechavero, ad matay chayav letapel bavladot. Another braita about another question. This guy owns animals. He's giving it to a shepherd to take care of, and it has offspring. Now, offspring, little baby animals, take a lot of work to take care of. They're like babies. And so how long does the shepherd need to take care of the babies? Bedaka sheloshim yom ubagasa chamishim yom. If it's a small animal like sheep and goats, 30 days. For a big animal, cattle, 50 days. Rabbi Yosef Omer, bedaka shelosha chodashim, mipnei shetipola merubeh. Rabbi Yosef says for small animals, the shepherd has to take care of it for 3 months because it takes a lot of work and it really needs a lot of help. What does that mean? That it needs a lot of help. It can't just live on its own. So you need to take care of it for 3 months. Because the small animal has very small teeth, and the shepherd needs to cut up its food in small pieces so that it can eat it. Whereas the large animal doesn't need that. It can just, after 50 days, it can eat on its own. So you need to take care of the small animal for longer. After that time is up, whatever the time is, then the shepherd can take his half like normal, like it would for the adult ones, and he can also take half of the profit of the owner. In other words, for the offspring, the shepherd is going to get 3/4 of the profit from that time, however fat it is from that time and afterwards, because it takes so much more work to take care of these small animals that he deserves 3/4 of the profit. Rab Menashia bar Gada shekal mechasa shelo v'chasim machase b'shel chavero. We had a case just like this. And Bar Gada, he accepted animals to raise as the shepherd, and they had offspring, and he took 3/4 of the profit. Atale kamed Abaya marle man pelaglach. Case came to Abaya. Abaya said, "Who decided that you should get 3/4? Did you take it to a judge? Did you take it to a rabbi? You just decided this yourself? You can't do that. There's all kinds of subtleties and that go into the decision." You are living in a place where the common practice is that the shepherd raises the animals. If he's taking care of the mother, he takes care of the animals too, without extra payment. And the next Mishnah that we're going to learn, is that if you're in a place where the practice is that the shepherd takes care of the offspring, then they have to take care of the offspring without any added wages. And now a case of two Samaritans who, interestingly, even though they're Samaritans who generally don't get along so well with the rabbis, but they came to the rabbis for judgment. I guess they knew that the rabbis knew the law well and trusted their judgment. Anyway, they made an iska. They also don't say that you can't take interest. It's in the Torah. The Samaritans follow Chamishechum Shah Torah. Literally, they don't do all the laws, but whatever they do very strictly. So they made a kind of deal like this, half profit, half loss. And then one of them wanted to split without the knowledge of the other. He just wanted he decided, I'm taking my half of the money, and the other guy, they had cash. They both put in cash, and whatever they were doing with the cash, they bought some stuff, they sold, now they have cash. And one of them decided, I'm out of this partnership, and he takes half of the money and leaves. So the other guy brought a suit against him to Rav Papa and says, he unilaterally disengaged from the partnership. Can he do that? Rav Papa says, what's your problem? What difference is it to you? After all, Rav Nachman says, money is considered as if it's already divided. Money is money, right? It's not one item. It's not like if we have a partnership in a horse. So then, you want to divide. You want to out of the partnership. You just take half the horse. You can't just cut it in half. You're going to go sell it without my knowledge. Where are you selling it? What price are you getting? So if you're talking about an item and you want to dissolve the partnership, then it's difficult to do. But if you're talking about cash, so cash is already divided. You just make a calculation. You don't want out of the partnership, take half and then leave the other half. You could do that any time. Now these two Samaritans, they continued their partnership even though they had a fight here. They accepted what Rav Papa said, and this time they purchased wine together. Now they have wine. The one who brought the suit before, he decided in this time that he is going to leave the partnership without the agreement of the other one. And he took half of the wine and he said, that's it, without the other one knowing. Now, the other guy, the one who left the partnership first in the previous year, came to Rav Papa and says, how could he do that? Rav Papa told the guy who left first with the wine, well, who decided that you can leave? Right? Who split the merchandise for you? You can't just do that. You can't split it yourself and leave. So that guy, that litigant, who's now the defendant, before he was the prosecution, now he says, oh, I see that you're always against me, right, Rav Papa? Last time, when I was the second, I stayed in the partnership, and the other guy left first, you ruled against me. And now this time, when I leave first, you still rule against me. You just have a grudge against me. Why are you picking on me all the time? Rav Papa says, I have to explain myself. Generally, a judge does not have to explain his decision, right? He's not there. It's not a negotiation. He hears all the evidence, says, you're guilty, you're innocent, that's all. But in some cases, it's a good idea for the judge to explain And he says, in this case, really, it's not clear to an outsider, to a layperson, why he decided this way, and it looks like he's being unfair. So Rav Papa decided, I'm going to explain why I made my decision. Zuzeh mi shakil tabeh v'shakil hasreh. There's a difference. When regarding to cash, did he take the good coins and leave the bad coins? The coins are all the same. And so it's easy to divide, right? You just count the coins. He took half, he left you half. So there's no reason to have to go to a judge to decide anything. Amale la, right? So yes, did he take the good ones and leave you the bad ones? And the Samaritan who was the defendant this time says, no, they were all same coins. Rav Papa explains, that's good for the cash, but when it comes to wine, everybody knows there's better wine and there's worse wine. And so now you had, 10 barrels? So it could be that you took the 10 good barrels, right? He told this guy, not the defendant. He's he's the defendant now, because the other guy sued him, and he says, you can't leave first because maybe you took all the good barrels and left the bad ones. You can't divide wine evenly by yourself. You have to bring it to a third party to split it for you. So yes, you happen to be, you were in the wrong both times. I don't have anything against you. Gufa, Amar Rav Nachman, Zuzeh keman de peligi damu. Now let's analyze this further. When Rav Nachman says cash is as if it's already split. Hanemili tabe v'tabe takule v'takule. About tabe v'takule la. So Rav Nachman says we only say that when the coins are all good coins, or all heavy dinars, they're all the same and easy to evaluate, then fine. But if some are nice good coins and some are chipped coins, then you have to bring it to a judge to decide how much each deserves. Rav Chama, Hava Mogar Zuzeh B'Fshita B'Yoma. Rav Chama, he used to rent out coins, one pishita, a little bit, for a dinar per day. You want to rent my money? You can. And he thought that this was allowed because he's not doing a loan. He's thinking of it as a rental, right? I could rent out my hammer to you, right, for a day, and you pay me a certain amount and give me back the hammer. So you want to use this coin? I rent out my coins. Kalu Zuzeh Rav Chama. However, he did not do the right thing, and in the end, all his money was lost as punishment for charging interest. This is not, you don't rent out money. That's called giving a loan, and he's taking a rental fee for it. That's called interest. Now, what was he thinking? Hu sabad maishanami madai. Says, what's the difference of a hoe? If I lend out a hoe, I charge you $5 to use this hoe for a day. So same thing. I have this coin. You can use this coin, and I'll charge you, 50 cents to use this coin for the day. He thought it's the same. Velahi mara hadra be'aina ve'yedia pechate zuzeh la hadri be'anaihu vela yedia pechate. But it's actually not the same. When it comes to a hoe, he's returning that very hoe itself. And you know what the depreciation is after using it for a day. Now it's a little bit more used, more broken in, and worth a little less. So the rental value covers that. That makes sense. That's why you charge people to rent things. Whereas money doesn't go, you don't return the same money. If I give you a loan, you go, you spend it, you buy, you sell, and you get other money and you pay back different money. And it's not, you don't know how much it depreciated. I mean, coins is true. As they circulate, they depreciate a little. But you're not returning the same exact coins. So we're not talking about that. This is interesting. It would mean that, let's say I did borrow a coin for itself. Let's say it's an antique coin and I'm making an exhibition and I want to rent your coin to put on an exhibit, and it's going to have some wear and tear from handling, and I'm going to return to you the same exact coin. So I want the coin for itself as an artifact, not to use as currency. Well then, Rav Chama in that kind of case may be correct that you can consider it an item that you're renting. But here, that's not the case. They were taking this money and spending it, making business with it, and then returning other money. So that's called a loan, and that is not permitted. Amar Rava, share le leinish lememar le lechavre. Helach arba'a zuzeh ve'osfe leplanya zuzeh lo asra Torah ela ribit haba'a milove lamalve. That's a big chidush. And he says that you can have some kind of interest type of payment as long as it's from or to a third party and the money doesn't go all the way from the borrower to the lender. How so? Two scenarios. One is permitted to say to his friend, here, I will give you 4 zuz, meaning I'm going to pay you the interest, so that you will give a loan to someone else. That someone else, the borrower, is not allowed to give that money to the third party. We're not talking about that. This verse says, listen, I want my friend to get a loan. I will put up the interest to you so that you will be willing to do that. Because Torah only says that as long as the money doesn't go from the borrower to the lender, that's the only thing that's prohibited, otherwise it's permitted. Also allowed is if a borrower tells his friend, here, I'm giving you 4 zuz so that you could put in a good word for me and go ask this guy to lend me money. That's permitted because he's just paying him for talking, for putting in a recommendation. The money is it was not getting from the borrower all the way to the lender. It's only going to the third party to help facilitate the loan. That's okay. For example, Abba Mor, the son of Rapapa, he would accept pans of wax from the wax manufacturer, and as exchange for receiving this free wax, Abba Mor would tell his father, Rapapa, who was wealthy, lend money to these wax makers. So the rabbis told Rapapa, your son is accepting interest. You're giving the loan, and your son is taking interest. It's not allowed. And he answered them, this kind of rebit is permitted. One is allowed to consume any interest of this kind, because the Torah only says that rebit cannot be paid from the borrower to the lender, and here they're just giving him something to give a recommendation. I'm not getting the money. He's keeping the money, but he's not actually get the lender, so it's permitted. Next Mishnah. Shamin para v'chamor v'chol davar shu oseh ve'ochel lemechasa. If you have an animal that pays its own way, like a cow or a donkey that works, and it works sufficiently and more to pay for its own food. In that case, you can make an iska deal without any further wages. You can say, I own this animal, you take care of it, we'll split the profit and split the loss, and the shepherd will also get the benefit of working the animal. It's true, he has to put in some labor and he has to pay for the food, but the animal pays for itself and more, so the owner doesn't have to give anything further. This is the part that we just quoted above. If you live in a place where the custom is to split the offspring immediately, right when it's born, we say, okay, this is also, you get half, I get half, or whatever profit, then they split it right away. But if you live in a place where the shepherd has to raise it for free and doesn't get any profit from it for a certain amount of time, then he has to raise it for that amount of time. Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel Omer, Shamin Aim Imo, Usyach Im Imo. Rabashbag says that if the shepherd is taking care of a mother, then he takes care of the young also without any further wages, because it's easy to take care of young when the mother's around. The young is going to follow the mother around, the mother's going to take care of the young, and therefore, since it doesn't take a lot of effort, so the shepherd does not need to get any extra wages. Mafriz al sadehu ve'no choshesh mishum ribit. The last item is that an owner can inflate the rental fee for his field, and you don't have to worry that that is ribit. The Gemara will begin with explaining what that last case is. Gemara, Tenor Banan, Mafriz al sadeu ve'no choshesh mishum ribit. What does that mean? You inflate the rental price for the field, and it's not ribit. Kesad, hasocheret hasadeh mechavero ba'asara korim haitin lashana. Someone rents out his field, and the rental price is
10 kod of wheat per year. That's what the worker or tenant has to pay. Ve'omer lo, ten li 200 zuz va'afarnesena. Now the tenant says, listen, I have an added deal. Give me 200 dinar, lend it to me, and I will use it to invest in the field. I'll buy some more seeds and tools, and I'll make the field better, and it will yield even more. And I will pay you not 10, but 12 kud of wheat per year. Now this looks like a loan because the owner of the field is giving 200 zuz to the tenant, and the tenant is going to pay back the 200 zuz. Plus, he's also going to be giving an extra 2 kod per year. So that sounds like he's paying interest for the loan. However, it's permitted because we see this as a business deal, because the money is going directly to be invested in the land, so they both will benefit from that. And the tenant it'll produce even more than 2 kod per year, hopefully. And the tenant will gain from that, and he'll pay more rent. And so this is now a business deal. One person is providing the field plus some seed money, and the other person is going to be doing the work. And therefore, that's fine, it makes sense. However, you cannot make the same deal if it's a rental of a store or a ship. If someone owns a store or a ship, he's going to rent it out to someone else to use for business, to sell things or to ship things. And then he says, hey, in addition, besides the rent, I'm going to pay you the rental fee, let's say $1,000. And why don't you lend me also $500, and I'll use that money, and then I'll increase the rent that I pay you. That is not allowed. We're going to see why and in what case that's true. Rav Nachman says, actually, it is permitted. Even in the case of a store, you can increase the rental payment of a store and benefit from, and take a loan and increase the rent in order to paint a design on the wall, make a nice sign, make a nice front, make it nicer in the store. That way more customers will come in. Or sefina lasot la iskaria, or a ship to make a new sale. If you paint the walls and make a nice design, then people will want to come in the store and they will buy more, and it'll be increased profit for everyone. So to make a new sale is good because since the sale will be even nicer, so the wages, the profits will also be more. And therefore, if you can do, basically you can do the same deal as with a field, as long as the money is going to be invested in the business, in the physical store or on the physical boat. That's the same as taking a loan for it to be invested in the physical land. And all those cases, it will grow more. That's permitted. When the Braita said it's not permitted, that would be if I have I'm going to rent your ship, and I'm also going to take a loan, but I'm going to use the loan just for personal reasons, or even to buy goods to put on the ship or whatever. But it's not investing in the ship itself. That's not called a partnership. In that case, the loan is separate from the rental, and then if I take the loan and pay you more rent, that would be interest. That would be a problem. But as long as the loan is being used to invest in the very item that is being rented, then that's okay, because that is a partnership. Sefinta, Amarav, Agra Ufagra. Now that you mentioned a ship, Rav says that one is allowed to rent a ship. He's going to pay rental, and also the renter will take responsibility for any damage due to the ship. He thinks that is permitted. Amru le Rav Kahana v'Rav Aseh leRav igra la pagra, ipagra la agra, shatek Rav. However, Rav Kahana and Rav Aseh told Rav, no, you can't have it both ways. If he's going to pay rent, then generally a renter is not responsible for damage to the item that just happens in the normal course, or not, obviously not if he's negligent. But a renter, that's what he's paying for. If I borrow your shovel, so I'm paying rent because, or a car, I'm paying rent because there's wear and tear on the car, on the shovel. So that's included in the price of the rental. So I'm not responsible. Whereas if you say I'm responsible for damages, the renter is responsible for any damages, then that looks like a loan, because if I borrow, just like if I borrow money, I have to pay back no matter what. Even if I got robbed right outside the door, I borrowed the money, I'm responsible no matter what happens. So too with the ship. If you say that the renter is responsible, basically he is borrowing the ship. So if he's borrowing the ship, then he can't pay rent. If he borrows the ship and is responsible for all loss, that's a loan. And then if he pays rent, that's interest. So you can't have it both ways. You could either pay rent and not be responsible for the loss, or you can be responsible for the loss and not pay rent. So they challenged Rav. How could you do both? So Rav had no answer. Amar Rav Sheshat. My tama take Rav Sheshat later says, why? How come Rav was quiet? La shemi'ala le hadetanya. Must be that he didn't know the following braita. Not everybody knew every braita. Everybody knows every mishnah, and there's many braitot that people know. But there were also braitot from certain schools or transmitted in certain places that not everybody necessarily knew. But there is, in fact, a braita that backs up what Rav says, and he could have responded with this. Afa pishamru en mekabelin son barzel mi Israel, ava mekabelin son barzel min hanochrim. Even though there is an ancient halacha that one cannot receive son barzel from a Jew, but you can receive it from a non-Jew. What is son barzel? This is a guaranteed investment. It's so guaranteed, it's like barzel, it's like iron. And in many cases, this investment would involve sheep. That's why it's called son barzel. So this refers to a case where an owner has some item and he will give it to a worker to go and sell for him or use, and they'll split the profits. However, if there's a loss, the worker takes all of the loss. So now there's only upside for the guy that owns it, right? Because if there's some loss, he loses nothing. And if there's an upside, he gets half. So one is not allowed to do that with a Jew, because now he is basically renting it out. See, once you say that the worker has to take all the loss, that is a loan. So that's considered a loan. And if he does make money, then he will be paying half of that profit to the owner. So he's taking a loan because he's accepting all of the loss, and he's paying if there's profit. Well, then that's called paying interest on the loan. So you cannot do that with a Jew. However, you can do that with a non-Jew, because one is allowed to pay interest to a non-Jew. Aval amru hasham para lechaverov amar lo hare paratecha suya alai be-30 dinar v'ani ale lecha sela bechodesh mutar lefi shelo asa'ah damim. Now the first part is not like Rav, but the second part is a support for Rav. It says even though that is the halacha, however, you can do the following scenario. Someone owns a cow and they assess how much it's worth. Assess how much it's worth means that if there's a loss, then the guy who works it is going to be responsible. And the owner says, listen, the worker says to the owner of the cow, your cow I will accept upon myself for the evaluation, the assessment of 30 dinar. If I don't return it, if it dies, meaning I'll pay you 30 dinar. And in addition to that, assuming it doesn't die and I use it and I work it, I will pay you 5 sela every month. This is permitted because he did not make it a matter of lending money. Now we ask, velo asa'a? What do you mean he didn't make it a matter of lending money? He just said, he says, I'm fully responsible. Amar Rav Sheshat lo asa'a damim mechayim ela lachar mita. Rav Sheshat explains what he means by that is that he did not assess the value as long as it's alive, meaning that if let's say it goes down and it stays alive, but the cow goes down in value, it gets sick, it gets emaciated, and in that case, the worker does not take any responsibility. So therefore, mostly it's like a rental.
So he's paying five sela per month, and he's not taking responsibility for any diminished value of the cow. So that's totally fine. The only thing he's taking responsibility for is if it should die and there's a total loss, then I'll pay you 30 dinar. And that in that case, it's permitted because it's different enough from a loan since he's not taking all of the loss. And so if you do something like that for a ship, not for the wear and tear. He's not paying for the wear and tear of the ship. He's just saying, listen, if the ship goes down and is lost totally, I'll pay for it. But it's still not like a loan because he's not taking responsibility for any loss of the ship that's intact. And so that is like what Rav said. So Rav could have brought this Baraita as a proof. Amara Papa, Hilchata Sifina, Agra Ufa Gra. Rav Papa says halacha is like Rav, and with a ship you can collect rent, and also be responsible for all of the damage that is permitted. V'nagu b'nei kufra, agra b'shat meshicha, pagra b'shat shebira. And in fact, the men of pitch, meaning sailors, they would do this deal precisely, and they would pay rent at the time that they first pulled the ship. Usually, rent is paid at the end, but they would pay the rent at the beginning. And if it broke, then they would pay for damage at the end after it broke. We ask, what do you mean? So they are accustomed to do it. Just because they're accustomed to do it, does that mean that is permitted? And we say, no, that's not what we're saying. Mishum dematnita tanya minhaga. No, we're saying that the Braita taught this, therefore it's an acceptable minhag, and so that proves that Rav's ruling did have a proper source. Baruch Adonai De'olam, amen v'amen.